quilty friends. Here I am going to film myself like I told you last week because Cassidy's not available, and so we're going to see how this works. So I've put the camera up on a stand up there about where Cassidy stands to film. She's just not going to be able to, you know, be here to zoom in and zoom out, so it's all going to be one shot. And so hopefully if you need to see something a little bit closer up, you can just pinch your, you know, picture and it'll come up and show you bigger. Okay, so let's get started. So last week I showed you how to make these tall pine tree blocks, okay? And I'm making 2 of them for this project, and this is a Christmas table topper that I'm making. And of course you saw in the opening video what it's looking like, and of course in the photo what it's going to look like at the finished photo. But so the tree starts out in my snowman sew along right here, okay, with the tree. But I really wanted to do another project with it, and I thought it would be really cute to do 2 trees and do a great big block in the middle, because those trees finish at 30 inches tall, and so I want to do a big block in the middle. And this is like a scrappy block that I do a lot, that I love, and it kind of is like the courthouse steps, a little bit like log cabin, but I call it, for this project, I'm calling it the chapel steps, okay? Because of it's Christmas and Christmas fabric. And so what I'm doing is I made the two blocks that are 9 by 30 inches finished, the tree blocks, and then this is a 30-inch square. And then I'll just go ahead and sew them, you know, to each side. This of course is unfinished. It's on my design wall. This block is way too big to put in here. And so it's on my design wall in my workroom in there. And so I just took a picture of it and printed it off on my computer so it would be kind of like, you know, a guide for me so that I knew. And so here's the center of the block. And we'll talk about the cutting a little bit later. Let me just set that over there because I just kind of wanted to show you how fun and easy this block is to make. I have the center right here, okay, all ready to go. And I went ahead and did the 6-inch block that starts in the center. And what I did with that is I went ahead and pressed the seams open, okay, just like I show you in most of my videos. I'm pressing the seams open, and I'll show you how I do that as I go along and do these. And so I went ahead and sewn this one first. I did several steps kind of ahead of time because it's a super simple block to make. You just kind of really need to know the cutting and instructions and kind of how I do it. So what I'm doing is I'm just making these little 4 patches right here, cutting 1.5-inch squares, 2 of them that match each other, and then a 2.5-inch square of print for the center, and then I've got 2.5-inch squares of the background, okay? And then I'm just turning them this way. This is how it's going to start, okay? So that these little 4 patches go like this, okay? And it's sort of like a cross between an Irish chain block and a courthouse steps. And so I've used this block several times in many scrappy projects over the years, but I don't think that I've ever done a video and shown you how to do it. And so I thought, you know, this one would be perfect. And I like these kind of blocks for the center of a table topper because then you're putting something on the table, you know, picture this on the table, and you're setting something on it, and it just looks so pretty coming out, and with those trees on the edges. And I think it's a great Christmas time or winter time, you know, table topper. And so what I did was I just sewed this together like a 9-patch, okay? And then I simply press the seams open and have it here. And so your next steps are, you're just going to take these side pieces right here and sew to each side. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. And I'm just using a 1/4-inch seam allowance, and I'm using my Seam Sew Easy Guide and my readers. I like to use my red ones when I sew. I'm going to try to lean back a little bit so that you can see me sewing, but yet I need to be close enough sometimes, so I apologize. You're going to see my hair and, you know, my face and everything getting in there because I do need to see what I'm doing, but I want you to be able to see also. I don't know, I just thought this process would be okay, I hope. Just let me know what you think. As long as you can see my sewing machine and you can see the ironing and you know what I'm making, and then the help with pictures of the end and the beginning and things like that. And the cutting, of course, I always give you the cutting recipe within this video description, so don't forget to click on the description. I'm using scraps of fabric in between just to save thread. Normally I'm doing my bonus sewing, which by the way is a lot of what I do with that. And so in between, meaning when I say with that, I do scrappy blocks in between when I'm sewing other quilts. And I talk about that in my other videos as well. And so what I'm doing here is I'm setting the seams, and then I'm just going to open those up. And I like to use this roller, my easy press roller, especially where the seams join up right here. I like to just kind of press a little bit before I put the iron to it. Okay, let's get that open. And so I'm pressing it and rolling it all the way open where, you know, those seams are where the thread is, and then I'll go ahead and press instead of iron. Try to press that down with a nice hot iron, and then I will, you know, add these clappers to that to cool off for a minute. Okay, so while that's cooling, let's talk a little bit about the cutting. And so you'll need to make, let me grab this paper. Let me hold it right here. I'm thinking you'll be able to see that good, and you can take a screenshot if you want of this so that you can refer back to it. But again, I'm going to be having the cutting recipe right here in the description, so you don't need to worry about that. But you're going to need to make 28 of these little 4 patches, okay? And they finish at 2 inches by 2 inches after they're all sewn into the block. So unfinished, they're going to be 2.5 inches. I think I've got, because I was using that, yeah. I use my 2.5 inch trim it ruler to trim those up to make sure, you know, before I start sewing it into the block, use those. Here, let me see if I can set this down here. And just line one of them up like that. See, my trim it rulers really come in handy. I love to use those lines, how they go this way, and I can see if I need to trim around it, or you know, if it's missized or anything like that. It just helps me, it stops me from making any mistakes and keeping things nice and square. And so that's the 2.5 inch size that I do with that. And so let me set that aside. So you're going to need to make 28 of those, and then you're going to be cutting your strips, of course graduated sizes, in bigger increments as we go along. But I just wanted to show you that what I did ahead of time was sew these together, these little 4 patches on the ends of the strips before I'm sewed it onto the block. Okay, and I'm just going to stick a pin on this side. I don't want to lose a track of what order I'm supposed to be doing them. I mean, this could be switched around this way, but I set it up because I want this pink one to be in that corner. And so that's why I thought it was very necessary to, you know, take a picture, just print it off for my laptop and have a guide there. So I'm going to sew both of these sides, and then we'll press those open as well. And so when I'm sewing this together, this seam needs to line up with this seam right here. And so I just line that up. You can put a pin in it if you'd like to, or you can use a double pin. And those double pins go in so that you have one pin in one side of the seam and one pin in the other side of the seam, and that helps line those up. You can sew over them. They are thin enough that you can sew over them, or you can just take them out right before you, I think I'm just gonna stick that right there, so. Or you can just line it up right here. And watch as you sew along. Okay, and I just often lift up and make sure that those seams, because they're pressed open, are still lying flat on the back. Okay, let me put another scrap of fabric in there. Let's do the other side. So yeah, you'll have to let me know what you think about this setup here. If I'm able to film me sewing with this camera setup here, then that means I can do videos more often and just not have to worry about when Cass can come over or when she has a free minute in her schedule. And as a busy mom and having her own business and things like that, that gets kind of hard to schedule between her and I. And so I'm trying to figure out a way that I can have the ability to just do it by myself, so that I can kind of invite you in my sewing room like I like to do and just show you the projects that I'm doing as I'm doing them, and have a little bit more freedom to film more often. So let me know if you like that idea. Okay, so then I'm just trimming those off. I have this little bowl that I keep my little scraps in, this little vintage bowl. Back over here to press my seams. Take my glasses off so I can see at this point. And all I'm doing here is just opening it up again. Same thing as always. And I really like to roll right where those, where there's seams that line up in the intersections. That really helps, so that I know that that is all the way open, and so all I have to do is go ahead and press down. I try to press, I may wiggle the iron just a little bit just to make sure I'm that's just kind of a habit of mine, but I don't go like this to distort the block. It's just barely going back and forth, so I really like to press instead of iron. Now I could use 2 clappers, or I could use these long ones. I've got these right here. So I'm just going to put those on there. And then when that's cool, I'm just going to do the exact same step. I'm just going to add this side and then this side, press the seams open, and then this and that, and press the seams open, and it just keeps going on and on with each step, and you're just kind of doing from side to side, from top to bottom, until you continue going. And so let's talk about a little bit about the trees and the background yardage. So let's see. This is the background from Hometown Holiday. By the way, this is Hometown Holiday fabric, my current collection that I'm using. And this is the background print that I chose to use in the entire table topper. And so I wrote down here that to use in this and for the little side borders I'm going to tell you about in a minute, that was 12 inches. And so then I kind of added the background in these trees because I used the same one in the trees. It's kind of a big block to show you, but hopefully you can see it like that, right? Both of those. And so I figured I needed about a yard, that I used about a yard. So if you're worried about it, you may want to get a 1/8 or something, or you could use scrappy backgrounds. And so what I did was I finished the trees just like I showed you last week, and then I cut 4 1.5 by 30.5 strips of the background and sewed on each side of the tree, just so that I would have a space a little bit between this block. Okay, so that's going to finish at 30 inches These finished at 9 inches, but now they're going to finish at 11 inches because of the borders, right? 9, 10, 11. And so 22, 11 plus 11 is 22 plus a 30. So that's 52 inches wide and 30 inches tall. Okay, and I just keep going. Now you can also use, you have enough in this roly-poly right here, this 2.5 inch roly-poly of Hometown Holiday that you could do, you know, you've got plenty in here that you can do the Chapel Steps block. But of course you're going to need more yardage for the trees. These are taller than 2.5 inches. So those greens and reds and brown prints are going to be different from the roly-poly. But let's see, what else did I want to tell you? Let's see, so now I've got, so these A and B, which I'll have, are the background, and all of these are scrappy prints. So I did them all different. Maybe a few of them I repeated here and there, but not very often. I don't think. I just cut a bunch of scraps because I'm going to be doing, I think, 4 more of these blocks and sewing those 4 together, which will be a 60 by 60 inch square quilt, which I think will be a really fun lap quilt. So I did cut a bunch of extra strips, and so what I do is when I cut them, these are the smallest ones that start to go out right here. And so I just label them E, and then F is the next step right here. And then these I just press in half after I cut them. I mean, I don't press them in half, sorry, I just fold them in half and put them on the design board so that they'll fit, and fold them, so G, H, I, and J. And so they are 4 inches bigger in increment as you go along. And so the largest strips that I do are, for this, which is the J, is 26.5. But if you wanted to do, so that finishes at 30, but if you wanted to do another strip and keep going and making it bigger and just one great big quilt, then instead of 26.5 for the next one, you would need to cut that 4 inches bigger, okay? So you just keep going until, I think that you could add 2 more rows until you can't get any more with the fabric. So what you would do was 32.5 would be the next one, and all 2.5 inches wide still, 32.5, and then you would cut 38.5. And then because fabric is, I don't know, you maybe could get another one, 42.5. Okay, so you could make like a 42 inch finished, and that might be kind of fun too. It's just, this is a fun block. You can make it as big or as small as you want to. It's great, just depending on how many rows you want to do is how big your block would be. And I think it's a great scrappy block, and as you know, I love to show you scrappy blocks. Let's see, I'm sure this is cool by now. And so you can see what that block looks like, even that size right there. That's a 10-inch block. And so let's see, let me look at my picture so that I said it correctly. And then I'm not going to show you how, I mean, you know that I'm going to join this to this and then that to that again and just keep going and going. But what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just sew the whole thing. Then I'm going to sew them together, put it back up on my design wall, and then I'll show you the whole thing, the entire thing finished so that you can see what that looks like. And then I'll just do several pictures at the end here of the video showing you that it's finished. But I just didn't want to forget to tell you any information. Here's something else I wanted to tell you. This print right here from the collection, I started right here in the center block, and I think that I'm going to use that for the binding. And so for the binding, I'm going to cut that, let's see, I'll grab my paper again. For the binding, you're going to need about 3/8 of a yard. You're going to cut 5 2.5 by width of fabric. Okay, so about 175 inches for that, to bind that. And then for the background, I told you 1 yard. For the backing, if you're going to use wide back, you would need 1 1/8 yards, okay, the wide back. But if you wanted to use something else, which I just pulled this in to show you, this is the chapel print that I designed, went with this collection. And because this is the Chapel Steps block, I thought this might be kind of fun to back my table topper with this print right here. I love that print, so I think that might be really cute. And so because that's not a wide back, it's just regular width fabric, then I would just go double with that. I would just do 2 1/4 yards for that. Okay, and let's see, I think that's it. I think that's all the information. There's the trees again. Here's the block. I think they're going to look really cute together. And I'm excited to get that on my table. And I will go ahead and finish sewing this. That'll probably take me about another hour to finish up, but because of the magic of filming, it'll only be a few minutes until you see it finished. And so please take advantage of the description in this video and look at all of the cutting, write it down or take a screenshot, and please leave me a comment. Let me know if you liked this setup, if it was okay, if you could see what was going on. And I sure hope that you do, because once again, I'll be able to bring you more blocks, more filming, more of showing you what I'm doing. I can just go ahead and put my phone up there on the stand and just turn it on and film and show you more of what I'm doing on a weekly basis. And so thanks for joining me in my sewing loft today, and I will chat with you later.